Boys and girls, welcome back. We're super excited that this week we get to have expeditions again. It feels like it's been forever since we had expeditions. And as many of you know, we have to start with a word of the night. Well, you know, this might be a hint for you. I've got my safety patrol jacket on, and Peter Panda's got on his safety patrol belt. So if you're thinking, you figured out the word is safety. Well, we are going to show a few pictures, and if you think that it's safe, give it a thumbs up. If you think it's unsafe, give it a thumbs down. And Peter Panda is going to help me out here. So what about this girl riding her bike with a helmet on? Is she safe or unsafe? You got it, Peter. She is safe. Well, what about this lady walking right out in front of a car, staring down? Safe or unsafe? Unsafe, that's right. Moving on to the next one. What about sticking something metal and sharp into a toaster? Safe or unsafe? Unsafe, you got it, Peter. All right, let's move to the next one. We have two smiling young men in the back seat of their car with their seat belts on. Are seat belts safe or unsafe? They're safe. All right, and the last one. What about these kids climbing up the slide, one right behind each other? Safe or unsafe? Unsafe. If one of them slipped, the other two could get really hurt. All right, next you get to hear from Pastor Josh about missionary C.T. Studd.
All right, well, it's good to be back with you guys. It's been a few weeks since we've had expeditions. Over the last several weeks of expeditions, we've been looking at different missionaries that God has used throughout history to spread the message of the gospel. Tonight, we're going to look at missionary C.T. Studd. Now, if you think about his name, you're probably thinking of a guy who's a man's man, an athlete, someone who's strong. Well, you'd be correct. C.T. Studd was a college athlete. He went to college and played a sport that us in America don't play that often. Cricket. Now when I say cricket, you might think of this tiny little black bug who chirps and makes a lot of noise, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a sport that is somewhat similar to baseball. A sport, though, with a very fast-moving projectile, and each player wears a helmet to protect them from getting hurt. They need to be kept safe. Well, our missionary tonight went lots of places, and God had to work to keep him safe. He was born in England, and his father was a wealthy businessman. Enough to pay for him to go off to college and train and study, but mostly to play cricket. While he was in college, C.T. Studd's father went and heard an evangelist named D.L. Moody. D.L. Moody explained that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. We cannot get to heaven by doing good works. We cannot get to heaven by going to church. We only get to heaven by believing in Jesus Christ. C.T. Studd's father wanted C.T. to know that as well, so he kept inviting pastors over to the house to talk to C.T. Finally, one day, C.T. Studd understood that he was a sinner in need of salvation. So C.T. Studd asked Jesus Christ to be his personal Savior. From that day forward, C.T. Studd knew that he wanted to be the missionary. He wanted to go around the world to tell people the same message that he heard, that Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. That Jesus Christ is the only one who can forgive us of our sins. We just celebrated Easter, the miracle of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And C.T. Studd knew that he couldn't just stay in England. He wanted to travel the world. So while he might have started here in the United Kingdom, God called him to the opposite side of the world, all the way over here to the giant country of China. In China, he met up with Hudson Taylor, and he worked with him there on the mission field for a few years. However, he tragically got sick and had to return all the way back to the United Kingdom. He remained there for a few years getting healthy, and then God called him out again, but this time to a different country, to another large Asian country known for a huge population. That would be the country of India. But once again, after being there for only a few short years, he fell sick again and had to return to England. He got back to England frustrated, not knowing, why does God keep allowing me to be sick? I want to be on the foreign field, sharing with other people this message of Jesus Christ. Why can I not stay healthy? Finally, he recovered his strength again, and this time God called him to a third country. But this country was going to be vastly different than China, where he had Hudson Taylor, than India, where other missionaries had already been. God was calling him from his home country of the United Kingdom down into the jungles of Africa, into the Congo. In this Congo were tribes of people who had never heard of Jesus Christ. When they saw a white man, they thought, there's some white meat. They were cannibals. They wanted to kill any foreigners. But that did not scare off C.T. Studd. He wanted to go and tell them about Jesus Christ. On the first night of their journey into the Belgium Congo, an event happened that would have made most men turn back. They had set up camp. They were getting ready to cook their meal that night. And as their porter, the man who was helping them carry their luggage through the jungles, was fanning the flames of the fire to make it big enough for them to cook their food that night, the wind picked up and blew one of the embers over onto their tent, and their entire tent burned to the ground. In that tent was most of their food, most of their clothes, most of their supplies. They only had what they'd carried in on their backpacks and the clothes on their back. Most men would have said, this is pointless, this is worthless, I'm leaving, I'm going. But C.T. Studd and his friend, Alfred Buxton, said, we're going to stay. We're going to go. They continued to travel, and they got to the edge of Lake Albert. On the one side of Lake Albert where they were was the English side. The side that you might say was a little more civilized. But they could see across the lake the Belgium side. And that's where God had called them. To the people that had never heard of Jesus Christ before. While they were waiting to cross over on a boat, they met a trader. And that trader started up a conversation with them. And that trader's like, where are you guys going? What are you guys doing? You're English. Why are you here? And they said, we're here to go tell people about Jesus Christ. And he says, you're not going across the Belgium Congo, are you? And he's like, and they're like, yeah, of course we are. That's what God's called us to do. And he's like, you guys are crazy. If you go over there, they're going to kill you. And they're like, what do you mean? And he said, just a few weeks ago, a fellow trader of mine went over there and they beat him and he barely escaped with his life. Also, there was an elephant hunter who was going over there to bag some elephant, and they got him with a poison arrow. And no one has heard from him since. If you go over there, they're going to kill you. But we were determined. We knew that our God is more powerful than any cannibal. Our God is more powerful than any force. Our God would keep us safe if that's what he'd call us to do. We knew that our God could protect us. We finally made it to the other side of the lake, and we're going to travel up through the jungle 80 miles to the town of Kilo. Our porters were there carrying all of our luggage, carrying everything that we had left. We picked up more supplies there on the edge of the lake. And my friend Alfred and I were going to try to ride our bikes. This is like extreme mountain biking through the jungles of Africa. But it was faster than walking. The problem is, because we were faster than walking, we left our porters well behind us. They were the natives. They knew the directions. We didn't. We got to a fork in the road, a place that it divided. One went to the north, one went to the west, and we kind of didn't know where to go. So we decided we were going to take the one that headed to the west, because that was ultimately the direction we wanted to go. We started down the road on our bikes. It was great. But all of a sudden, the road became a trail. But, I mean, we guessed west. That's our ultimate direction. It can't be that bad, right? Finally, the trail disappeared, and Alfred and I looked at each other, and we're like, where do we go? We're lost. We have no one here to help us. We have no one here to tell us where to go. We thought, well, maybe if we turn around, maybe if we try to go back the way we came, we could find the porters again, and they could help us get to where we were going. But we were lost. Screech! Alfred and I looked, and we're trying to find where that noise had come from. Maybe it was a monkey out here in the jungle. We hoped it was a monkey out here in the jungle. We couldn't imagine if it was a cannibal or something else. We sat there, held our breath, waiting in anticipation. What could it have been? And all of a sudden, a bush started to shake behind us, and we both turned and looked as fast as we could. And out from the bush stepped a man. And that man walked towards us, but he didn't look like us. As we stared at him, he began to smile with a big grin. And we knew that grin. That grin, as we looked at his teeth, each of his teeth had been chiseled to a point. That was the grin of a cannibal. Were we going to be his next meal? We looked down at his side, and he was carrying a basket of sweet potatoes. Were they going to be the side, and we were going to be the meal? We motioned to him that we were hungry, that we wanted some food, and he handed us the potatoes. We couldn't speak his language, but when food's around, we all know what food means. We all know that this means we want to eat. So we followed him to his village. We get there and we see people running around and looking and staring at us like, who are these people? And we're like, are they thinking that we're on the menu? His children, his family come out and see us. He motions for us to sit down, and we sit down, and they begin to beat the drums. And we're like, is that the call to dinner? What's going on? And they bring out all of this food and put it in front of us. And we're like, are they trying to fatten us up so they can eat us? We don't know. And the man motioned. He said, eat, eat. And we ate. We get to the end of the meal, and he has us stand up, and he points off in a direction, down a path. And we realize he's telling us the way we're supposed to go. This man who we thought was going to kill us, this man that we thought was going to harm us, God had used him to not only give us direction, but to feed us, to point us that this is where we're supposed to go. God had miraculously protected us. God had kept us safe. C.T. Studd would remain in Africa for 25 years. While he was there, he was able to reach many villages who had never heard about Jesus Christ and face even more dangerous circumstances than the one we just talked about. When he finally died, over 2,000 Africans traveled from all over the Belgium Congo to see him one last time. God had done a great work through C.T. Studd. God had kept him safe. Our Bible promises us that our God is a strong tower. He's like a castle. When we have problems, we run to him. Our God will protect us. Have a great night.